Well, considering the only time you ever wind up in the news is for something cripplingly negative, I just don't think I would want to learn how to be like you. Hi, and welcome back to me talking about whatever I want. Today I want to talk about Jake Paul for the first and hopefully the last time. But considering that he's possibly one of the most controversial YouTubers to have ever graced the platform, I have a feeling it's not going to be the last time. But before we get into that hot mess, of course, I'd like to do my comment shout out from my last video. This comment actually goes out to Carousel XX, who says, he said, welcome back to me talking about whatever I want, and I instantly hit subscribe. Gotta love the vibe. You made the right choice, as did the 140,000 other people who are subscribed apparently. Wasn't it just 100,000 last week? As always, this channel is doing amazing and I appreciate the support. And I appreciate you guys letting me take a small break because, well, I kind of needed it, as you can see. I was a little busy getting used to the feeling of having metal cemented onto my teeth and then wire strung through those metal brackets and tightened. They say beauty is pain, but like I was already beautiful, so what's the point? Anyway, that's enough about me, the channel, and my braces. Today we're going to talk about something that's somehow even less interesting. Jake Joseph Paul. I don't know if his middle name is Joseph or not, I just said that.
Jake Paul was born Jake Joseph Paul.
No, it's like when you hear something and it gets stuck in your subconscious and then you think you came up with it later. That's kind of how I was starting to feel when I heard about Jake Paul's latest scam that he wound up in the news, because I was thinking, wasn't he in the news for a scam like literally this time last year? See, Jake Paul has made his way to the top of YouTube by being one of the most shrewd businessmen and one of the most morally bankrupt human beings that you possibly could. I mean, he has 20 million subscribers. You gotta be somewhat good at your job, right? Sadly though, his job is lying to children. All right, see, I knew it wasn't crazy. Back in the very beginning of 2018, he came out with this whole program called Edfluence, which is basically a course I've created teaching you guys all the secrets, tips, and tricks I've learned over the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years of doing social media. Well, considering the only time you ever wind up in the news is for something cripplingly negative, I just don't think I would want to learn how to be like you. But I mean, I'm sure a bunch of kids did, because it was like mildly successful, even though it was a scam. I forgot to mention that, but of course it was a scam. It's obviously a scam. He kind of marketed it as being $7, but then it was kind of like $57 actually.
Once you paid the $7, thinking you had then unlocked all this extra content, you were immediately prompted with a second screen where you were asked to pay an additional $57 to unlock everything you thought you just bought.
I don't know, it was pretty shady. So yeah, when I heard Jake Paul was in the news for a scam like last week, I was like, he did that already. But then I was like, well no, clearly they're not talking about Edfluence because that was in 2018. But then I was like, wasn't there something in 2019 too? Mystery brand. It was a gambling site. Like that's just all it was. It was literally just a gambling site. He seemed so okay with it that when H3H3 tweeted out, you loved being called out for selling a gambling scam to underage kids, Jake Paul just replied, yes, love it. Heart emoji. You know, there's one thing where people are faced with tough decisions and then they make the wrong choice. But there's another when you just make the wrong choice because you can and nobody can stop you. So here we have a man called out for promoting a scam in 2018, switched to a different scam to promote in 2019, and is now under fire for promoting a different scam in 2020. First of all, why is he still on YouTube? FTC, come get your boy. But the FTC did not come get their boy because now we are faced with the financial freedom movement. Now, one thing that I find really weird about this is that the financial freedom movement was kind of already a thing before Jake Paul just co-opted the name. Financial freedom is just when you're able to make choices involving money without having to stress over it too much because you have the money. There's like a lot of seminars and talks and good advice and some terrible advice about how to become financially free. Well, for some reason, Jake Paul has entered the chat and now he wants to teach us how to do that via YouTube. All right, so the first thing I see on this website is a giant photograph of Jake Paul. You know, I thought the point of making a website for your product was to encourage you to buy it, not to encourage me to click off of the website as soon as possible. Also, I like how his expensive watch is like so prominently placed in the shot. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I need to see what time it is. So I mean, honestly, what do you expect? The website's full of manipulative text. They say we're entitled and lazy. They tell us to go to college, get a job, retire at 65. How's that working out for us? There's over $1 trillion in student loan debt, and people with outdated education who can't even get a job for the student loans they took out. Wait a minute, He's not encouraging you to skip college, is he? A movement that anyone who's courageous enough to follow can have a much higher chance of becoming financially free from the societal cookie cutter life 9 to 5. He's literally encouraging people to skip college. Now look, I'm not one of those people who says you have to get a college degree, otherwise you'll have no chance to succeed in life. You know, a college degree is not a guarantee that you're going to succeed in life. I have a bachelor's degree. Look where that got me. And that's not to say that this is a bad place to be. I mean, I enjoy making, these daily YouTube videos, mostly daily, sometimes I get braces that leave me in extreme discomfort for days. But like, obviously I don't need a college degree to do what I'm doing, right? I'm sitting in my room and using my phone to record myself talking about Jake Paul. So like, he's not wrong. He's just doing that really tricky tactic of using a perfectly valid premise to promote an awful product. Also, listen here. If there's anybody I want to tell me how lame it is to have a societal cookie cutter 9 to 5 job, as if that's some sort of negative connotation, it's not going to be Jake Paul. It's not going to be somebody who's never worked a 9 to 5 job. I've had both an extremely low paying job and YouTube. At one point, YouTube actually was the extremely low paying job, but I've had a different job besides that. Having been on both sides, I can pretty easily say they're just jobs. My fulfillment in life didn't increase that much when I do YouTube. They're like, oh, hey, D'Angelo, how are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Cookie cutter. They're like, what? I'm like, nothing. Like, oh my God, there's nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5 job. But no, apparently it's societal. We live in a society. I also like how he contradicts himself on his own website, because it says right here, this course isn't for people looking for a magic pill to success. There isn't one. But then if you just scroll up, like not even that much, just slightly, it says one of the things you get from this course is Jake Paul's personal experience, rituals, and secret formula on how he's achieved massive success at a young age. Is there one or is there not? You're playing with my emotions here, Jake. Honestly, what emotions? I feel nothing when I look at this website. I don't even feel angry anymore. It's like, what do I expect when I walk along a dirt road? To get dirt on the bottom of my shoe. That's the same attitude I have towards Jake Paul. Like, what am I gonna get? Scammy, scummy, trash, just flooding my page for no reason. One thing I will say about this website is you can tell it's very misleading in a lot of areas. Like, for example, up here you can see these logos and it's like Forbes, the Walt Disney Company, ABC, MTV, CBS, CNBC. But like, what about them? Like, why are these logos here? Is he trying to make it seem like the course has been used by these people? Because it hasn't. Is he trying to make it seem like these people have all talked about his, because they haven't. I guess he's trying to say these are all the places he's appeared, which that makes sense. But then in that case, what would that really have to do with purchasing this program? It's like a really misleading way to kind of make it seem like he's getting support from all these companies that probably have no idea this thing is happening right now. All I'm saying is don't be surprised if these logos magically disappear from the site by the time you get to it. Another thing that's super misleading is this whole $40 a month, but it's on sale for $19.99 a month. It's never going to be $40 a month. Like, it's not on sale. This thing is probably worth less than $19 a month. Maybe $19 like once. But yeah, making it seem like it's on sale, it's half off, you got to get it now. You don't have to get it ever. You shouldn't get it ever. He also has this join now thing. For example, the first 10,000 movement makers to take action and join below receive insane bonuses. The whole site's trying to pressure you into acting. And it's like, I think he would be lucky to get anywhere near 10,000 subscribers to the service when it's just like so far removed from what he's known for, which is garbage vlogs. I mean, this is basically things that only an adult would care about, right? Kids don't know what financial freedom is. Kids don't understand the significance or lack thereof of a 9 to 5 job. Kids just want to see Jake Paul punch people. That's why he's famous right now. He switched to boxing. If you go to his channel, it's just a bunch of vlogs of him punching people. And also, getting punched. See, you can't say he lacks depth. But you know, here I am, just negative Nancy on the internet, complaining about this website. What if he's genuinely offering good services? I should have given him a chance. So let's watch his little trailer video.
They say we're entitled and lazy. They tell us to go to college, get a job, retire at 65. How's that working out for us? Are your parents happy? Are they living the life they wanted?
First of all, he's just reading what's on the website, like verbatim. I thought this was going to be some sort of exclusive information. Second of all, are your parents happy? He's talking to his audience of 8-year-olds, trying to use said 8-year-olds' unhappy parents as an advertising tactic to be like, hey, you don't want to be like your parents, do you? You don't want to be trapped in a loveless marriage and a horrible 9-to-5 job raising bratty children like yourself. That would be awful. Okay, I take back what I said about like walking on the road and getting dirt in your shoe and it's this is not expected. This is more than I expected. All right, so the trailer is not it. Let's look at some of these teaser clips for the actual lessons that we'll learn, you know? I'm always up for learning how to make more money.
I remember my dad would used to like buy like houses for like $50,000 in like really bad areas, and we would go and work like 18 hours a day, interior decorating the house for like months at a time, and then he would turn around and sell the house for $100,000. And so from a young age, we were like taught like a work ethic.
So from a young age, we were taught worth it. No, you weren't. That was your dad's work ethic. Your dad flipped the houses. But you know what? I guess the point of this clip is to combat what I just said, which was that he's never worked a 9-to-5. Clearly, he's worked hard with his dad, flipping houses in poor neighborhoods so he could profit off of them. But you know, clearly for me, I'm still a non-believer. Jake Paul is not enough to convince me to buy this course. So let's see what this other guy says. I don't know who this is, but he's on the website, so clearly he's an expert.
You know, if you had to make $1 million in the next 12 months, could you do it? Maybe, yeah. And then, but if someone put a gun to your head and said, I'm gonna kill you and your whole family, which might sound crazy, could you come up with a way to do it? And all of a sudden you have a much bigger reason.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's like, oh yeah, well now I have no choice.
Okay, why didn't I think of that? I've always wanted to be a millionaire. I should have just made it a life or death situation. You know, never mind all the families who don't have enough money to support their literal dying family members. Clearly, if there's threat of death, you could figure out how to become a millionaire, right? Here's another guy. Why do I dislike all of these people's faces so much? Like, that's not constructive commentary. It's just, it's true though.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, they say data is the new oil. And so for any brand owners out there or anyone who's wanting to...
I didn't understand a word he just said. Why is his audio quality worse than my... I am one person in his room. How do you have a whole conference but you can't get a good mic for your dude? Oh man, they only have one more trailer. They better convince me to buy it with this one because there's nothing else on this website.
If you're a photographer and you go shoot for Jake Paul for free, a bunch of shots, right? Well, a lot of other influencers and brands follow Jake Paul, right? You film for them or photograph for them, and then Jake might follow them and wants to hire you. I might follow them and wants to hire you. A brand might follow them and wants to hire you. But your risk reward is nothing. Your cost is just your time.
That is awful advice. Don't ever work for someone for free. The only way that a brand is gonna stalk Jake Paul's page and see that you did free work for him and then contact you is if they also want free work from you. You can't establish yourself as a person in the market who does work for free. So that's my financial advice. That's my financial freedom movement. You don't work for people for free. And for this guy to go on there and say you should, and kind of imply specifically that you should do this for Jake Paul, a little weird. So like, how are you gonna have people on your panel who don't know what they're talking? Who are these people? All right, so it looks like we have 8 guys here, all of whom I would cross to the other side of the street if I saw them walking towards me. Dan Flishman spent over $60 million on influencer marketing. And where's the accomplishment? The only thing this is saying is that he spent a lot of money. How much did he make? What if he made $3? What if this man lost $59,999,997 and you just put him on your panel because he spent 60 of it? 60 million. Mark Lack king of personal branding with $300 million in student success. Okay, so the people who listened to your advice made $300 million. How much did you make? Like, did it occur to you that maybe the people who made all that money and found your course were already doing so because they were extremely motivated and you only played a marginal part in helping them? Travis Lubinsky sold 8 figures online and created products from some of the biggest brands in the world. But like, which ones though? You know, it's funny because this guy actually does seem to have a career and some expertise. But like, what good is that if you just turn around and start working for Jake Paul? I'm gonna be honest with you, Chief. If you think it's a good idea to let Jake Paul put your face on his website, forgive me for not trusting your judgment. Okay, wait. My favorite one of all is Billie Jean. It just says, ads have been seen over 600 million times. And you could literally just pay to run ads on Google and that would happen. I get that some of these people might be legitimate experts, but whoever made this website for Jake Paul doesn't know how to convey that. Anyway, this website is horrible and I've been on here for too long. So the last thing I want to look at is at the very bottom of the site. There's this thing that says letter to parents. And this is where Jake Paul realizes that, hey, kids don't have credit cards, so obviously the parent's gonna have to be the one paying $20 a month, right? So here's him trying to convince them. As a parent, you want what's best for your child, which is most likely why you've saved up for many years to send your kid to college with the hope that college will provide them with an education and degree. That's admirable, and you should be proud that you want that for your child. Why do I hear that in like Britney Spears' voice? That's admirable. Now let's talk about how things have changed since you were in college. Most college kids these days graduate with an outdated degree. So basically, the top half of the website is trying to convince kids not to go to college. And now the bottom half of the website is trying to convince parents not to send their kids to college. I like that he's going to fear mongering. He says it's only going to get worse, ! Once robotics, artificial intelligence, and other technology advancements disrupt the workforce even more, there will be even fewer jobs for your child. That is why it is critical as a parent you break away from only having your child's future rest on old morals of doing things when you can even see the landscape of the world is changing. Give your child the actual education they need to achieve financial freedom. I guess Jake Paul is labeling himself the actual education that your child needs. If you're already paying for Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime, those things aren't helping your child or their future, are they? This is your chance to show you are truly committed. Wait a minute. Yeah, so leave it to the 23-year-old YouTube star to tell everybody how you can really show you're committed as a parent. Not the parents who had the kids, you know, and saved all the money for them to go to college. Like, what exactly does Jake Paul know about the financial requirements that go into raising a child successfully? Nothing. The only thing you know is how to spend impressive amounts of money. It's the only thing you're good at when it comes to money, is spending it. And that shows because now here you are doing yet another crappy, poorly veiled scam to run on children because you need to make more money so you can continue living your lifestyle that you never should have entered into the first place because you knew that you had no talent and that everything you built was going to go away once people realized that. But hey, that next Lambo isn't gonna pay for itself. I mean, you can tell that he's peaked. You can tell that at the very young age of 23 years old, Jake Paul is already washed up and has nothing else to contribute to the world of entertainment. 20 million subscribers, but his views are doing that. I mean, even Logan Paul has more views than Jake Paul at this point, and it's like, yikes. You can tell Jake is just trying so hard to get every last bit of money he can out of that pretty much financially worthless audience he built up. I mean, kids are pretty good at convincing their parents to buy them merch, but I really doubt kids are good at convincing their parents to buy them an affiliate marketing course for $20 a month. But nevertheless, he's still trying. I mean, he's trying to expand into the real world so hard with like the boxing tournaments and the summits and conferences. And it's just like, you know what? No matter what you do, Jake Paul, you're always just going to be that 23-year-old kid from YouTube who's scamming the kids. So honestly, who cares?